Semitic is,
Exactly.
at least my observation. I had very little discrimination.
Yeah.
Not a lot of it was overt. It was maybe
What,
kind of, go
yeah,
ahead, Eric.
what it was, there was a printer in town who wrote terrible anti-Semitic tracts. And his brother was a school counselor, and somehow they got this stuff disseminated through the schools. Plus which, Father Coughlin was on the radio in those days making these anti-Semitic speeches and stuff like that. And so we got the reputation based upon those tracts, which were anti-Catholic as well as anti-Semitic. And apparently there were some brown shirts in town, which were the American Nazis. I was never aware of them, but you'd hear about them in the paper every once in a while. But I think the sociologist, Terry McWilliams or something like that, picked this up and wrote it in a book, and so we got a reputation for being the anti-Semitism capital of the world.
Well, that appeared in, I think, the American Mercury in 1946.
Probably.
My understanding, and it may be wrong, is that St. Paul didn't have such an anti-Semitic problem. Do you know?
No, for some reason, well, first of all, the St. Paul was originally settled by
German Jews.
German Jews, right? And Minneapolis was settled by Scandinavian
Lutherans.
Jews, and the Scandinavian Jews were less tolerant in
You
those
mean
days.
Scandinavian Christians,
Christians, I mean,
Protestants.
yeah, Protestants were less tolerant. So the Jews moved. First of all, the Jews that came to St. Paul came earlier, and they were German Jews, so they fit right in a lot easier. So they had a much easier time getting along in St. Paul than the Jews in Minneapolis did.
But you should know, the German Jews, they were assimilated, and they were modern. And then when the Russians moved in, I mean, they looked upon them as peasants, and actually they were peasants. They lived in the little shtetls. They didn't know about hygienic things, and they were just poor people. And if a girl was going with a Russian and she's a German, it would be almost like you're going with a
Mixed
Gentile.
marriage.
I mean, they were just would be terribly upset with that. It's hard to understand that now, but that's the way it was. And I think in our day, as Irv and I got a little older and stuff like that, I think by then it had already eased, when the Ashkenazis established themselves and started to get to do well and so forth. And that's all gone now.
Neil,
Yes, Marty, please, come up here. This is Martin Bush.
I was born in Minneapolis.
Marty, take
I
this.
don't need it.
All right, talk loud.
Born in Minneapolis in 1917. My mother had two sets of twins, boy, girl, 3 years apart. We lived in a home at 1021 Girard North, which was across the street of the Grant School. Those years, everyone worked in the family. The girls had secretarial jobs. One brother worked for the telephone company, and that was rather anti-Jewish, but with him for many, many years. And in the Depression, he was earning $35 a week. That was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
I lived across the street of the Grant School, and we used to play on the school. Kids never got fat in those days because we were going all the time. I would wear out a pair of shoes on the sand and gravel there in a week, and it was 50 cents to repair them again. When I was in high school, I got out at 2 o'clock because I had a job downtown. I worked for a company who was selling parts for watches, the mainsprings, all that goes with it. And my job was to make the route downtown. There were about 30 jewelry stores, and each jewelry store had a watchmaker. The watchmaker used to fix the clocks, and we sold the parts. So I pick up a little package, you go from one store to another, get back to the shop, turn in the parts. They would work on the next day, and then I return them. And then at the end of the day, we send stuff out of town. We had to use sealing wax. You heat it up and put it on the package and stamp the date. I earned $5 a week doing that. It was $1 a week for a car fare, and I gave my mom $3 a week. That's how I started out. When I got out of school, my first job was working in a store downtown, a fruit market, $15 a week, 6-day week, 12-hour days. Later on, I got $18. I thought I wanted to do something else. My dad was a sheet metal worker. In the old days, they didn't have any power equipment, so if you had to cut a piece of material, you squeeze it with your hand. He had a grip. If he got a hold of you, you go down to your knees. And if he closed his wrist, you couldn't open it. His fist, I mean, you couldn't open it. Anyway, we all got along. He didn't. Oh, after a while, the Depression came along. He was putting gutters on Homestool, and there was no money, so that didn't happen. So he started in peddling, hauling scrap. As a kid of 12 years old, I was helping him for a while. He had a horse and wagon. The horse that he had, at one time, worked in a fire barn and had horses to pull the machines around. When the sirens rang, that horse would get excited, wanted to get out of the house.
Marty, it's officially, the time is up, although if people want to stay and talk, there's nobody coming into this room after us, is my understanding. Rabbi Kravitz, do you want to say anything?
Yeah. Thank you. We're sorry about Sylvia couldn't join us tonight, but we wish her fortunately when she had a fall this week, so she's okay.
Oh, no.
So, and everybody else is here.
If people want to stay, they're welcome, but Nina, the warden back there, is telling me it's time to go.
Okay.
Gotta take all your comments.
Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't be so serious. Life's too mysterious. You work, you save, you worry so, but you can't take your dough when you go, go, go. So keep repeating it's the berries. The strongest oak must fall. The sweet things in life to you are just loans. So how can you lose what you've never owned? Life is just a bowl of cherries. So live and laugh at it all.